Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Kaido Kikulu here in the nation's commercial capital, Lagos. Well, the countdown continues to Decision Day 2023. It's exactly 71 days to next year's general elections. And we continue to keep our eyes on the goal of ensuring a free, fair, and credible election. It's for the good of our nation. It's as simple as that. But some issues have come up, especially issues that need clarification on the conduct of this election. And tonight on the program, we'll be taking a deep look at that one. But for now, 71 days to that election. We'll keep our eye on the ball. And while we wait for that one, it's a big topic tonight. Let's give you a lowdown of what played out at the National Assembly today, where the Joint Committee of the two chambers screened nominees for the board of the Niger Delta Development Commission, that's the NDDC. Now, top on that list of nominees is aide to President Muhammadu Buhari, Ms. Loretta Onoche, for the position of chairman of the board, and 14 others as board members. Well, this is not her first time at a screening of this nature. She had been nominated by the president in October 2020 as a national commissioner for INEC. Well, that nomination was met with a lot of pushback, and it fell through with the president sending a replacement eventually. And just like deja vu, you may call this new nomination is also being met with reservations, both within and outside the National Assembly. Now, while some persons in the Niger Delta wrote petitions against her, some committee members challenged her on the grounds that she is not from an oil-producing community in Delta State, where she hails from. Well, there was pushback, however, in her favor, as some argued that this is not explicitly stated in the NDDC Act. But take a listen.
I will not sit here and adopt a situation whereby government after government will undermine the very act that has created this. I don't mind if at the end, at an executive session, we say, okay, we should make exceptions for this. No. Because if you don't correct this, we will have a situation where persons who are not from the Niger Delta one day will be nominated. The act is very clear. Those who should not come from oil-producing communities and states is very clear. Northeast, northwest, and so on and so forth. For the position of chairman, we can make an exception. But for the other positions, even if we are allowing these particular nominations to go through, please, my dear colleagues, so that we save the integrity of the law we have made, we should make it clear that all future nominations should comply with the act that governs the nominations.
When we had a reason to turn down the presidential nomination of this same nominee in the Senate, it was because the position for which he was nominated was the position of an umpire, electoral umpire. And there were members of the public who were concerned that because she is a card-carrying member of a political party and a presidential aide, an active one, she was not the best person. And in the Senate, specifically in the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters, where I'm also a member, we took into cognizance the concern of the public. Today, in the Senate, we are faced with a different scenario. She has been nominated as a representative from an oil-producing state and for the purpose of holding a political appointment for which she is eligibly qualified.
So that's what played out at the National Assembly earlier today. But let's move on to the executive, where some new revelations have emerged from the EFCC over its investigation of the suspended Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Ahmed Idris. Or the chairman of the anti-graft agency, Mr. Abdurrashid Bawa, says over 30 billion out of the alleged 109 billion naira fraud have now been recovered from Mr. Idris. Mr. Bawa told journalists at the weekly ministerial briefing in the State House that high-profile personalities in government agencies across board have been subject to investigation, including the EFCC, which is evidence, he says, of the government's successful anti-corruption drive. They then announced that the commission will, by year-end, publish nationwide auction of real estate across 15 locations in the country in order to dispose of over 150 flats and apartments for forfeited assets. Meanwhile, at the courts, the EFCC is being accused this time around by the former Deputy Senate President Ike Kurmadu of being responsible for his travails in the United Kingdom, where he's currently in detention over organ harvesting charges. In the application brought by Senator Kurmadu's counsel and senior advocate of Nigeria, Adegboyega Awomolo, he told the Federal High Court that the anti-graft agency wrote a letter to the London court that made the foreign court refuse to admit him to bail. Senator Kurmadu is seeking in order to set aside interim order granted in favor of the federal government for forfeiture of his 40 properties in the country and outside Nigeria. Specifically, the detained senator alleged that the EFCC fraudulently obtained the forfeiture order for government by concealing information that investigation on the 40 properties started as far back as 2008. He further alleges that the EFCC was fully aware that he was in detention in London when the application for forfeiture of the properties was filed and argued. Now to the campaign grounds. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, has been campaigning in Anambra State, southeast Nigeria. At the Equemes Square venue in Awka, the state capital, Mr. Abubakar promised to unite Nigeria, to tackle insecurity and unemployment if he is elected president in the February 25th presidential election. Before that, Mr. Atiku and his running mate, Governor Fayekowa, in company of Sokoto State Governor Aminu Tambuwal and other party leaders, had visited the Governor's Lodge in Amobia, where they met Governor Chukwuma Soludo. They also met with all the traditional rulers of the state, headed by the Obi of Onitsha, Igwe Alfred Achebe. Well, there's more political stories from where that came from. Here's your political roundup.
Against the backdrop of the upcoming elections in 2023, President of the United States Joe Biden has encouraged President Muhammadu Buhari and the nation's electoral umpire to remain totally non-partisan. The U.S. president gave the advice in Washington, D.C. during a meeting with leaders of 6 African countries which have elections slated for 2023. The countries include Nigeria, the DR Congo, Gabon, Liberia, Madagascar, and Sierra Leone. According to a statement released by the senior special advisor to the president, Mr. Garba Shehu, President Joe Biden discussed elections and democracy in Africa as the group shared experiences. The American president further commended President Buhari for what he described as his efforts in deepening democracy, not only in Nigeria, but Africa as well. He expressed the understanding of the ongoing challenges faced by the countries, while indicating willingness of the United States to offer support in those areas of concern. The Federal High Court Abuja has dismissed a suit by the former Minister of State for Education, Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, and the Incorporated Trustees of Rights for All International, the All Progressives Congress, the People's Democratic Party, and their presidential candidates. Delivering judgment, Justice Inyang Ekwo declined jurisdiction on the grounds that the plaintiffs lacked the legal right to have filed the suit. Justice Ekwo described the suit as incompetent and proceeded to dismiss it. He also condemned the involvement of RAI, which claimed to be a non-governmental organization, in politically motivated cases. Still in the Court of Appeal, the Port Harcourt Division has set aside the judgment of the Federal High Court, which nullified all the APC candidates running for the office in the 2023 general elections. The 3-man panel of the court, led by Appeal Court Justice Mohammed Lawal Shaibu, held that the High Court judgment delivered by Emmanuel Obile in the case of George Olu and 5 others was faulty, as they failed to exhaust all internal party mechanisms for conflict resolution before instituting the suit. As part of efforts to resolve the outstanding conflicts ahead of the 2023 general elections, the Labour Party has set up a Security, Peace and Conflict Resolution Committee. The chief spokesperson of the Obidati Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Yunus Atanko, made the disclosure at the inauguration of the committee in Abuja. He explained that the decision to set up the committee was informed by the growing need to reconcile aggrieved members. According to Mr. Tanko, the committee is expected to reconcile the crisis that led to the suspension of the national youth leader of the party, the Ogun State executive of the committee, and the sack of the former acting national publicity secretary of the party.
The committee is to handle that and every other matter that has to do with grievances and misgiving within the party.
As part of efforts to curb thuggery activities during the 2023 general elections, a civil society organization, in partnership with security agencies and the Independent National Electoral Commission, is organizing a sensitization exercise ahead of next year. The event, which took place in Damaturu, the Yobe state capital, had youth and women groups in attendance. The exercise, according to organizers, is aimed at ensuring that all vices capable of causing violence are prevented. Stakeholders at the sensitization described about violence as a major threat to elections and urged the citizens to conduct themselves in an orderly manner before, during and after the election.
Our focus is on the election and the post-election, and that is why we find it very important to come out and be sensitizing the communities.
The leadership of the Inter-Party Advisory Council of Nigeria Imo State chapter has appealed to the state governor, Hope Uzodinma, to call the management of the Imo State Signage and Advertisement Agency to order. IPAC is accusing the agency of not giving all parties a level playing ground. Speaking at a press conference in Owerri, the state capital, the state chairman, Mr. Uchendu Ahaneku, expressed concern over the destruction of campaign posters and billboards erected by opposition parties in the state. He also accused the agency of clamping down on branded vehicles belonging to opposition candidates contesting in the 2023 general elections in the state.
His Excellency, the governor of Imo State, may not know. Perhaps those that he put in charge.
Finally, the Senate Chief Whip, Senator Orji Kalu, is asking supporters of the APC presidential candidate, Asiwala Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to ensure they win their polling units for their candidate, as this may be a requirement in getting appointed positions. Senator Kalu, while speaking in an interview with Channels Television, says it's not enough for party members to support Asiwaju Tinubu, but they must also win their polling units for the party to demonstrate their loyalty and support.
Politicians have left their wards, their polling units. Tinubu is not going to, by the grace of God, we are not going to appoint anybody DG or minister if you don't win your polling unit.
Now that you're fully acquainted, let's tell you about a major controversy that has been brewing in Osun State, southwest Nigeria, and it's between the current governor, Ademola Adeleke, and his predecessor, former Governor Gboyega Oyetola. It's about the management of the state's finances, especially during the tenure of former Governor Oyetola. Now, before now, there had been accusations, counter-accusations, but this latest one is coming from Governor Adeleke, who says his predecessor took 18 billion naira loan after he lost the July 16th election, and that the state is indebted to the tune of 407.32 billion naira as of November the 30th. Now, Governor Adeleke, during a gathering of traditional heads in Osogbo today, said that the only fund in government coffers as at Monday, November the 29th, was for November 2022 salary. Otherwise, he says the state treasury is empty. He also released some documents, attached it to that speech which he gave, and we'll be showing you the breakdown, but it's a quite dire picture painted there. What does the former governor have to say about this, really? Because he had earlier said he left some sizable monies for this government. So let's open this up and get the responses and clear the air, really. Let's know what the situation of things is exactly. We're joined on the program tonight by Mr. Ismail Omikbidon, who is a CPS to former Governor Oyetola. He joins us live from our Abuja studio. And also joining us virtually is Mr. Wale Rashid, who is a CPS to Governor Adeleke. He joins us virtually, Simran, from Osun. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so let's get right into it.
The pleasure is mine.
Right, as some sort of background, really, the latest details which were given, especially by the governor, he tried to detail some of the, finances, the current state of finances of Osun State. And I'd just like to show our viewers and break it down so everybody's on the same page as to what exactly it is we're discussing. So Governor Adeleke says, after a deep analysis of the accounts of the state, he saw that the loans which the state currently has to its account is 331 billion naira. If we could just put that up so you can see, 331 billion naira. Salaries and pensions owed is 76 billion naira. A total, he says, of 407 billion naira as at November the 30th, 2022. He also talked about a certain bridge loan, which he says was 18 billion naira taken after the July 16th election. He says the repayment period is between 16 months to 18 years. We showed you that earlier on, but this is also another breakdown, some more details of all of that. So let me bring this to Mr. Omikbidon, really. Your principal has been accused of leaving Osun State nearly broke, leaving only money enough for payment of a month's salary, amongst others. And in fact, documents were released, some of which I just detailed to you. What is your principal's response to that one? Because these are huge allegations, and it sort of conflicts with what he had said earlier about leaving some monies for the state governor.
Thank you very much, Kayode. I'm happy that sometimes when people make allegation, they should be aware that those listening to the allegation are not fools. They are people with discerning minds. I don't know if you have the table there with you, Kayode. They only listed when those debts will be liquidated, but they did not in anywhere listed when they were procured. At least if you have a date when a debt will lapse, you should have a date when it was procured. I am very sure that they did that deliberately to cover their lies, because if they had provided a date when those debts were sourced, it would have been very clear that none were sourced under Adegboyega Oyetola for the 4 years he spent. Now, if you go to item 7, if you have their table, there was a table that was released attached to their claims. If you go to item 7 there, they listed there that budget support from FG beginning from December 2021, and that it was for 6 months. Now, in the farewell speech of my principal, the 3rd paragraph from the rear, we stated it very clearly that Osun, like every other state, benefited from that 3 billion monthly for 6 months. If you multiply 3 by 6, it will give you 18. They also captured it in their table on item number 7. But they cleverly, except of course if they have any other 18 billion somewhere, it is the same 18 billion I want to suspect. They are cleverly claiming that Oyetola, borrowed. I make bold to say that for the 4 years we ran Osun State, we did not take any bank facility. And these facts are in the public domain. Is it possible to take a loan without going through the House of Assembly? The House of Assembly members are there, the Speaker is still there, they are all alive. You can cross-check these facts from them. The debts they are reeling out were the debts we also inherited from the Aregbesol's administration, from where we even paid 97 billion. If by their claim that we left them in debt, can you please let them tell the world where they have been sourcing the money they have been spending since November 27th when they came on board? They came November 27th to announce to the whole world that they were frozen the accounts of the state. To the best of my knowledge, up to this evening, they have not told us anywhere where they have unfrozen the same account. And I ask, where are they getting the money they have been spending from? We left 14 billion for them in various accounts. The details are there. And we stated it clearly in my principal's farewell address that for these 4 years, we did not take any bank facility.
All right,
but
Mr.
we also paid 97
let's take this to Mr. Rashid.
From the debts we inherited.
Right. So let's take this to Mr. Rashid. You have raised some questions,
for 1 month,
and we need to get response to those questions.
The type of peaceful atmosphere we enjoyed for 4 years.
Right. So you've raised some questions. Let's bounce this off Mr. Rashid and get his thoughts on that one as well. But Mr. Rashid, part of the statement of the governor earlier today, he actually asked some 3 questions. The first one was that Governor Oyetola must explain how 331 billion naira borrowed in the name of Osun State was expended with no obvious infrastructural development to justify this huge debt. But Mr. Mikmido is saying that, well, those monies were not borrowed during the 4 years of Governor Oyetola. So do you agree with that, or do you have facts or data that speaks to the contrary?
Thank you very much for having me. But let me put it this way. Governor Ademola Adeleke is an open governance advocate. We came into government without handing over notes, without anybody giving us statement of account, and he called the accountant general of the state to say, give me liabilities and assets of the state. And mind you, this accountant general worked with Oyetola, with Governor Oyetola for 4 years. So it's not our appointee. The man came up with the data showing the liabilities, showing the indebtedness from salaries to loans, multilateral, local, and foreign loan. We got it, and His Excellency said, no, I must take this to the people, because this man said he left 14 billion, and we cannot find any 40 billion in the account. In fact, apart from after paying the salary for November, the treasury is empty. So His Excellency now said, okay, let me call the owner of the state, the traditional rulers. Let me tell you, this is what I found. And this data and figure are coming not from Governor Adeleke, but it's coming from the accountant general that works directly with Governor Oyetola. So all what my brother Omipida has been saying, we have given out the fact. These are the debts that were not disclosed. If he's claiming that his boss was not the one that contracted it, it is between him and that accountant general, who is still in service and who has all the data. So the other one we want to point out is the 18 billion matter you mentioned. That loan came in July, and it was suspended before they left office this November. And we cannot find any trace, any track of what it was used for. And unfortunately, the repayment terms were also not listed. But Ashiru, that's not even the thing. After the governor's address today, we discover another very big scandalous debt hidden from the people. $100 million contracted and not disclosed. It was after the governor's briefing for the traditional rulers that this came up. And we now got to know that we have another $100 million indebtedness elsewhere that were not captured, that were even hidden from the office of the accountant general of the state. So what I want to put out is this. The debt given out by His Excellency does not even include the contractual debt for contractors of various capital projects. See, Osun is boiling. People are hungry. Our people they are so bitter that this man lied to them. Why lying that you left 40 billion when in reality you left a debt of almost 400 billion? So I don't want to go into the argument being put up by my brother. The reality is that Osun people, they have the facts, and the state is owing almost 400 billion. And when we had all the contractual things, it may even go to almost 600 billion. So to us, it's a challenge.
Well, two things, Mr. Rashid. Right, two issues quickly. One, you've not spoken particularly to the point he made that those loans were not acquired by his principal. Do you say that indeed they were acquired by his principal?
Let me quickly answer it. You see, the Oyetola administration has an habit of passing the ball. When you are in power, when you run away from responsibility, this is what we have. Okay, ask him, when they were leaving office, how come they failed to give us the account?
No, pardon me. So let's take this one step after the other so that the viewers can also have value for that. Are you saying that you have evidence that contradicts what he said, that indeed those funds were procured by his principal? So the funds or the debt was procured by his principal.
Let me put it this way. We have put the facts in the public domain. The fact and figure came from Accountant General. Let the Oyetola administration dispute it with the Accountant General's office. But to us, the debt we find on ground is what we have shown us. And this is all right. Data.
Okay, just to clear that, but that's still actually in the air. But the second point is this. He says, in fact, his principal had said that he left 14 billion naira in the state's coffers. I know that Governor Adeleke, while speaking today, also said that, well, the money left really is just enough to pay salaries for November. So is that a confirmation that indeed 14 billion naira was left in the state coffers?
It's not.
And if not, how much was left specifically in the state coffers, which will mean your wage bill for a month of November?
You know, what is the total wage bill of Osun? 3.8 billion. You get what I mean? If we pay the November salary, clearing it, and there's nothing in the cover again, and you said you left 14 billion, assuming 3.8 billion were out, that means you have 10 billion out. Where is the money? Nothing in the cover again. Oyetola and his people lied. And that was why they could not present transitional reports, handover notes to us. You see, if you left 14 billion in the account, and you now have 3.8 billion out of it, assuming, not considering. What is left? You are supposed to have 10 billion in there, and there is none. And what we have is 400 billion debt. You are not pushing it to one administration or the other. The reality is that 18 billion came in July, and there is no trace of it again. You see, actually, let me give you what is happening on ground in Osun, the state of Osun. People are so bitter, angry, that they were deceived, they were lied to.
Right. Let's take this to Mr. Mikpido. I mean, this has been on for quite some time now. And I know for a lot of people, they're looking to, okay, governance. I mean, things are moving. But it's important to clear the air on this issue so they at least know the situation they're in. But Mr. Mikpido, so he has said that what was left in the state's coffers is actually 3.8 billion, which is the wage bill, the monthly wage bill of the state. But relating to that, one of the other questions that Governor Adeleke asked, which he actually put out there for your principal to respond to, is that why is Osun State owing salaries and pension to the tune of 76 billion naira after he says he collected 50 billion naira salary bailout loan from the federal government? This issue of salaries and pensions has been on for a while, so I hope that you can present some answer that gives closure to that one.
Kayode, I didn't quite get your question very well, but I could hear you were asking about the claim about owing salary and pension. Again, before I respond to that, let me say this quickly. When my colleague from the other end was speaking, he said the Accountant General worked with us for 4 years. That is another lie that he has told before the world. I have said it consistently that the PDP in Osun, they have a tradition of lying without shame. You can cross-check my facts. The current Accountant General came on board some few months to the election. And so working with the Oyetola administration, I am not sure it's up to a year. Maybe about 6 months or thereabout. But hear him claiming that the Accountant General worked with us for 4 years. That is one. Two, it is also not correct to say that we did not hand over. What do you call handing over? A letter emanated from the office of the SSG, dated on the 23rd of November, inviting their transition committee to a meeting. The letter was delivered and was duly received, acknowledged. Now, about 2 days to the scheduled date of the meeting, we got a message from them that they were not interested in any meeting, that instead we should hand over to the most senior government official. Again, another letter emanated from the office of the SSG. If they permit me, I have the copy of the letter in the phone with me in the studio, but my phone was taken away from me. In that letter, the SSG stated it clearly that we were handing over 2 documents. One, to finances of the state. 2, a comprehensive handover note of over 200 pages. I don't know exactly what they are talking about handing over. I don't really understand. I think they should go and sit down and study those handover notes. If they do, they will not be embarrassing themselves the way they are doing.
Mr. Mikpido, quickly, Mr. Rashid, even though that's not the point we're trying to make. Mr. Rashid, just quickly speak to that. He says that they had written to you on November the 23rd, but 2 days before that, you had pulled out of the meeting.
Allow me to respond.
And just a moment, Mr. Mikpido. Just quickly, Mr. Rashid, you have 30 seconds on that.
Allow me to respond. Can I continue? Thank you.
Because he's lying.
Thank you. Now, from the figure
Mr. Mikpido, just a moment on that one. My question particularly,
the component of salary areas they are claiming,
if you can hear me,
28 billion or thereabout.
Yeah, just a moment, Mr. Rashid. It looks like Mr. Mikpido can't hear me. Can you hear me, Mr. Mikpido?
By inference, what they are saying is that we're owing salaries for close to 10 months.
Then we'll come in at the appropriate time.
Kayode, you can find out. In Osun, you cannot owe salary for 2 months and you enjoy the type of peaceful atmosphere that we enjoyed for 4 years. In the history of Osun, Adegboyega Oyetola will be the first governor that will govern for 4 years and there was no civil unrest for 1 minute. And that was because we took very good care of the welfare of our workers.
All right.
We did
so,
not
Mr.
owe
Mikpino,
salary
you are
for the 4 years we spent. As a matter of fact, the November salary, we signed off on the November salary on the 20th of November.
Right. So you're saying in essence that this 76 billion naira that the Adeleke government says you owed in pension and salary
so their claim of us owing is not correct. That of pension.
Mr. Mikpino, I'll need to come in now because you're going on and on. It looks like you can't hear me.
I inherited from government to government.
All right.
In our
Mr. Mikpino,
case,
just hold on. Just hold on for a moment. Can you hear me now? Okay, it looks like you can hear me. Mr. Rashid, you can quickly respond
Let me quickly correct some of the lies. The first one is on the transition committee. Immediately after the election, we wrote the governor, the former governor. I took the letter personally to Aberi, to the governor's office, with our team.
When did you get the letter?
Seeking that we have set up our transition committee, and we are seeking that they set up their own too.
When did you get the letter?
The state assembly proceeded to do the same.
We need to be clear on the fact, Mr. Rashid. What date did you get the letter? He said it was dated November the 23rd, if I'm correct.
No. We didn't receive any letter from them. You know, they call us. You know the time they call us? That was on Friday. That's 2 days to the inauguration. And they called, the chief of staff, the former chief of staff called by 2 o'clock when we were at the heat of planning for inauguration. Now, we had no handover from them, no statement of account, and the accountant general was talking about whether he worked with you people for 1 year, 3 years, 4 years, he worked with you. And he's the one that gave all this data. As you let me ask, the $100 million that we just discover now, what do we do about that? Where does that one come from?
Mr. Rashid, you keep calling me Ashiru. This is Coyote, actually. But I'd like us to move on to governance issues now, because I know this back and forth has been on for some time now. But let's talk about governance, because that's the job ahead, even for the ex-governor. There's still some sort of governance leadership roles for him. So let's talk about that. And I'll start with Mr. Mikpino. We'll be winding down on this for a moment, but let's get some value. Is your principal ready to present himself for some sort of, maybe to answer questions? Let's do this openly so we can leave all of this behind and focus on governance. Is he ready and able to defend himself, his activities, while governor of the state?
As a matter of fact, what they told us initially was that they were setting up a panel, and they had inaugurated the panel. Rather than allow the panel to work, they kept dishing out lies every now and then. I am aware that they have invited a member of our team to appear before the Solid Minerals Committee. And he has accepted to honor the invitation. So if they have empaneled persons to look at these issues, they should allow the panel to work rather than continue to dish out lies.
I'd like to pause you for
I don't think you are not answering.
I'd like to pause you for a moment.
Our administration is an open book.
But not to worry. We'll continue on this conversation.
Can take a look at it.
Heated.
No. Don't let us round it up. Let me have the last.
We'll be back after this break. Well, welcome back to the program. It's quite an interesting one, especially for the people of Osun State. They've just entered into a new phase of governance with Governor Ademola Adeleke. But there are still controversies as to, what happened in the previous administration, how this administration will move on from there. And we still have with us on the program tonight Mr. Ismail Mikpino, who's the CPS to former Governor Oyetola. He's been responding to some of the allegations which were raised by Governor Adeleke today. He joins us from our Abuja studio, as well as Mr. Wale Rashid, who's CPS to Governor Adeleke. He joins us via Zoom from Osun State. Mr. Rashid, let me come to you now. Quite a feisty session we had earlier, but we'll try to, focus on the issues, because ultimately this is for the people of Osun State. We can go on with the back and forth from now up until next year, but we need to make progress. And I'll ask you this. I know there are some issues you want to respond to, but there's some who might think that maybe this is a case of buyer's remorse on the path of Governor Adeleke. And they're asking, isn't this diversionary? Isn't this going to distract him from the work of governance which he has taken an oath to follow through with?
Yeah, thank you very much. Trying to show the public what you met on ground is not distracting. When you take over a governance system that you don't have proper, you don't have a transition committee, joint transition committee, you have a duty, and that is what Governor Ademola Adeleke is doing. We also discover a lot of looting and pillaging of government properties. So we set up committees to actually look into this. A whole lot of issues. It's a complete mess that we find on ground. But, you know, surprisingly and shockingly to likely critics, is that as we are cleaning up the state, the 100-day programs of His Excellency is also ongoing. The 100-day program will cover water, education, health, tech innovation, agri, and some other area, roads, infrastructure, and these are ongoing. But at the same time, while we are focusing on governance, we have a duty to let the owner of the state know this is what we met on ground. And that is what His Excellency did today by calling the traditional rulers. But that does not distract us from the goal of delivering on the 5-point agenda of Governor Ademola Adeleke. So I can assure you that what we have done is that we have a 100-day program properly costed with deliverables, actionable points. We have a 6-month program properly costed and targeting the people right at the grassroots. So we have a duty. If we said because we want to multitask, we now avoid showing the public. If we have not come up with this 400 billion thing, with all the data and facts, it will be a problem. People will not know. Today, the traditional rulers were shocked. Everybody was amazed and shocked. What is? So this money is up to this. Now we discover another $100 million. My brother, $100 million unaccounted. And this has not included the contractual cost. The preliminary estimate for the contractual cost is almost 300 billion. It's ruined the state. And we need to let the people know so that when we are delivering on the 5-point agenda, I told you we have 100-day program, right. We have 6-month program, we have a year program. So as we are delivering it, the people should also know the fact. We are not after Omipida or his boss or anybody. No, we are after the collective interest of the state. So
are you saying in essence that your principle will not be, what is it, prosecuting, probing, first maybe before prosecution, the former governor?
No, you see, the law is the law. While the committees are working, the committee will come up. Okay, let me give you an instance. Yesterday, there was a committee sitting, and I just came in and to see if you had stories of diversion, looting, pillaging, you will now wonder, is Osun a war state? Is it Liberia in those days? So what the governor is doing now is on multitasking. On the one side, cleaning up the mess. On the second side, implementing his 100-day program. And on the larger side, repositioning Osun from governance by deceit is what we have in the past. And the governor said open governance, transparency, and accountability. And that is why we are pushing out all this.
Okay, let me take this to Mr. Omikpido now. And a point Mr. Rashid raised, he said that the traditional rulers were shocked when Governor Adeleke was reading out these figures. And it raises a question, just how transparent, how much of information did your principal give to the traditional institutions,
I'm not hearing you at all.
The people? You can't hear me?
Yeah, oh dear. I'm straining my ears.
Oh dear, apologies for that. We'll try to... Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, clearly you can't. Don't worry, Mr. Omikpido.
I can hear you now.
What you can hear me?
Can I call you?
No, pardon. Wait, Mr. Rashid, it's time for Mr. Omikpido to speak now. So the point I'm trying to make, Mr. Omikpido, is Mr. Rashid talked about the traditional rulers being shocked when they heard about these figures, the loans and all of that. And it raises questions as to just how transparent, how accountable was your principal when he was governor, because that's directly speaking to his performance in terms of accountability and transparency in governance.
Thank you very much. I'm very sure that he was there when one of the traditional rulers also got up to speak. That, well, that the Oyetola that they know could not have done this. and that people should not draw conclusion that they should find out. I think what they just did was just to play to the gallery. You see, the truth is, Kayode, find out from people. A lot of Nigerians were amazed how we were able to run Osun for 4 years without taking a loan, a bank facility. We paid salaries for 4 years. We build roads. We build infrastructure. We build schools. We build hospitals. People were amazed at how we were able to do it. And we did it because my principal was very, very prudent and transparent. Look, if the issue of salary was an issue, it would have dominated the campaigns the way it did in 2018. We paid salaries in full. We never paid modulated salary. In the history of Osun, we left Osun better than we met it in 2018. We are not given to excuses. And that was why we were able to do what we did in spite of the huge indebtedness. You could Google, there were months that we collected 0 allocation from the federal allocation because of our level of indebtedness. Yet, we never owed salary. Governance never stopped. So we were very, very transparent in all that we did for the 4 years we ran Osun. And I believe that posterity will be kind to my principal and the members of his team.
Gentlemen, we have just about 3 minutes to wind down on this. But Mr. Rashid, tell the people of Osun, Mr. Rashid, can you hear me? Let me put in my question, please. So I'd like you to just help us, or at least the people of Osun, understand what the end game is. Are you planning to recover the monies that you said were not used well? Because your principal is asking for the former governor to account for the fund. So what exactly is the goal here? Are you trying to recover those monies, since you said that the state is near broke? Or are you just putting this out for people to know so that they can maybe understand if the governor says we don't have money? What is the goal here?
Thank you very much. Before I go to the goal, the end game, let me quickly say the statement credited to my brother that we left Osun better than we made, that was latent lie. We have gone around Osun and the infrastructures are in decay. The schools, health institutions were bad. A lot of money was supposedly pumped into healthcare renovation. We've gone around.
The government house your principal took over. Was that how the government house was looking in 2008?
Mr. Mikino, just a moment. Allow him land.
To your question, what is the end game? One, good governance. Good governance entails accountability, transparency. And how do you start it? Let the people know your starting point.
All right.
I'm taking over the state. This is what I met on ground. Secondly, are we recovering? If anybody is culpable, the person will face the law. And if you are found with government properties, you will be made to return it and possibly get prosecuted too. So it's about good governance. When you are in leadership, you are also accountable to the people. And what we have witnessed in the last few years, I'll call it years of locust.
So tell us then, Mr. Rashid, as we wind down, in terms of revenue generation, because that's at the heart of this really, is really money in the coffers of government, so you are able to do those projects, the agenda which you talk about. What is the goal of your principal if you say that, by the way, November's salary has been paid, right?
Yeah.
So does that mean that there's nothing left in the coffers? Because that's what the governor said, that you just had enough money to pay for the
collected my November salary, and I worked the 26th of November.
Wait, he's not asking you. Let me quickly answer him.
No, but that's an important point he made. He says he has not received his salary, though.
Who has not received it?
Is that not what you said, Mr. Mikino?
I haven't received salary. Salary has been
myself,
paid.
I have not received my salary, my November salary.
No.
I have not received my November salary. And several other workers who have not received their salary.
Can I answer the question?
All right, Mr. Rashid, please go ahead.
Now, you are asking, and I will go back to it. What is the end game? If you come to Osun and you come out and ask people now, we have opened the eyes of the people. No more governance by deceit. Governor Adeleke is very open and transparent. So the issue of what are we up to, I've told you, good governance. Secondly, what do we want to do with the people that looted and pillaged?
No, the question is, like how much IGR are you targeting? Rather, pardon me, that's the question. So now that you say you're at zero level, how much IGR is the governor targeting per month? So at least the people can know this is
I will
what
not
to
give
expect.
you the figures now. But what we are doing is that we are putting a lot of measures in place that will change the state from public sector-oriented system to private sector-based system. And that will cost across agri, health, and of course, we are doing a lot on tech innovations and digital innovation, digital economy to increase and boost the local economy. We're also doing Osun Fund for Osun. We ensure that money revolve around the local economy, empowering artisans, and a lot of things are in place. And it will be unfolded as the 100 days program progresses.
Okay, so you're saying Governor Adeleke is able to run the state without taking loans, either from banks or others?
Definitely. This is even too early to be talking about loan when we are grappling with 400 billion from Oyetola and his people.
So let's wind down.
Grappling with another $100 billion from Oyetola and Ismail.
Okay,
and all of them. What do you want us to do?
Gentlemen,
it's not even about loan now.
That's how much we can take at this point. We have to anchor, really. But I do hope for the good of the people of Osun State, these issues are resolved and the state can move forward. But I'd like to thank you so much, gentlemen. We've been speaking with Mr. Ismail Omikmido, who is a CPS former Governor Gboyega Oyetola, joining us from our Abuja studio, as well as Mr. Wale Rashid, the CPS current Governor Ademola Adeleke, joining us via Zoom from Osun State. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Ismail, thanks.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Well, I love the way you ended there. I mean, we should be friends after all. And we apologize we're not able to bring you that conversation on the PVCs and what has been uncovered by the Northern Elders Forum. We're meant to have the spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum, but we promise you we'll be doing that for you because it's a very important one. It touches at the very heart of election in Nigeria. Well, that's much we can take on the program for tonight. I'm Kayode Kikilu.